Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Those Two Geeks. My name's Alex. You're going to hear Joe in a moment, and we are joined again by the esteemed Matthew Klein, the author of Crashing. I'm not going to say that yet. How you doing?
That was a great tease, Alex. That was a really good tease.
You know what? It was accidental entirely, and
It was fantastic.
yeah, it
Thank
was good.
you.
Oh, you're
Thank you.
welcome.
So happy to be here as always, ready for another jam session to be the bringing up the rear of it as I tend to do. Um, but yeah, excited to be here. Got a lot of stuff coming up. New York Comic Con is next week, which is going to be absolute madness for me, but it always is. It's a lot of fun. Then I'm going to be in Raleigh, Durham at the beginning of November for North Carolina Comic Con, and going to be signing at Fight or Flight Comics. That all starts November 8th. And then it's my birthday. So I got a very busy
You do. Yeah.
next month or so coming up. I'm excited.
So when you go to the Comic Cons, are
Yes,
you
sir.
there? I realize there's probably a dual answer to this. I assume you're there both as a representing your day job, but then also as like the author as well,
So
and
we
probably
are
also as a just a general convention goer.
wearing multiple hats is what
Yeah,
you're asking. First of all, I don't want to ignore Joe. Hi, Joe.
Joe's
Oh,
ignoring us,
Joe's
so
ignoring us. It's fine.
yeah.
So, um, I feel like there's going to be a technical issue where Joe's like screaming at the computer right now, just like,
I think
why
so.
can't they hear me? And suddenly he's going to pop on. It's going to be great. So it depends on the convention. New York Comic Con Penguin Random House has procured me the badge to go and travel. I am there during the week. I'm there during business hours. I am there as a representative, first and foremost, for them. Secondary, I'm sure I'll have a little bit of time probably on the weekend to just sort of be a convention goer there. But I'm not tabling at New York or anything like that. I'll see some friends on the floor in the artist alley, but I'm first and foremost there for Penguin Random House.
Can you
And
guys hear me?
I can hear you now. There you are,
Yeah,
Joe.
you are
I was
absolutely right.
screaming at the thing.
See, knew
Yeah.
it, knew it. NC Comic Con near and dear to my heart because it was the first convention I ever went to, and I went in November 2014, like 2 weeks after I joined Valiant, which is my first publishing job in comics. So I love the show, and they have me though as an official guest. So I will be there officially as a guest, as a creator primarily. That being said, I whenever I'm at a comics function, of course, I have to be aware that I am a reflection of my employer. That's just being an adult and being realistic. So I'm not going to bash any publishers. I'm not gonna say anything outside the lines. I'm there to have a good time. I'm there to interact with the fans. But I will always be respectful of the fact that I do have a day job where I represent a distributor and publisher in comics, and that's just got to be the way of it. And that's not a bad thing in any way, shape, or
No,
form. That's not like I'm not saying PRH censors me or anything. It's like no, I am respectful of the job that I love, and that gives me a paycheck twice a month, right? And that I want to do good work for.
and that makes sense. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, my day job sent me on a convention to Las Vegas, and my manager said, "All I ask is just don't get drunk and pass out in the
Right,
hallway." I was like,
right,
I said, "Mate, I don't drink, so you're fine.
yeah.
I'm not going to be passing out anywhere." But they then told me how they went to a convention once and they had seen someone from another company do that,
Mhm.
and they said that probably don't really want to work with that company because of the reputation that they were getting. So it was one of those things where it's something as simple as behavior and reputation can significantly impact what you do, and you may not even realize it at the time, right?
No, and look, let's be very fair. Comics is a small industry. Like the comics industry is high school. There are cliques, there are different types of folks in there, but everyone talks to each other. You know, people are in discords, people are in group chats, people, you know, Matthew Rosenberg once said it to me that if you want to work with somebody that didn't fuck over a friend of yours, don't work in comics, because eventually we all sort of reshuffle the deck, and everybody goes to different publishers, to different distributors, to different different media outlets. We all end up working with everybody at some point. So knowing that, the golden rule: treat people how you want to be treated, and always, fake it till you make it. Project the person that you want to be thought of as.
We deal a lot with imposter syndrome.
Sure.
Here, wherever you go
in life. Yeah.
And one of the people I was mentoring, how do you deal with like, you must not have. I'm like, dude, I am the biggest sufferer of imposter syndrome, but I long ago learned that instead of being overwhelmed by it, you've got to flip the way you look at it and say, look, I could be overwhelmed and I don't deserve to be here. So instead, I'm going to become the person that does deserve to be here and prove to myself that I'm in the right spot. And someone on the outside may not see any difference in how you're behaving, but it's all the mental aspect of things where you need to just recalibrate how you're looking at things.
For me, I'm very fortunate that I've got a little bit of performance training as an actor, and having done a lot of theater and a lot of live performance. And for me, sometimes it really is, I have to feel like I'm playing a bit of a role at first, and I can sort of give myself a little bit of creating. I hate to say creating a character, but I'm creating the person that I want to be, and then trying to be that person, right?
Yeah.
And because I have a little bit of performance training under my belt, that's how I sometimes have to look at it, just to overcome that imposter syndrome. It's easier for me. That's my coping mechanism, if you will. I don't know that it's a healthy one, because there's a little bit of a dissociation, you could argue, in that sort of way. But that's been my trick, is like, think of myself like I'm an actor, saying some lines, and in understanding who my character, quote unquote, is who I want to be. And that's what I try to do to overcome it in those moments, especially where I'm like, okay, I got to give a giant presentation in front of 250 people, or I've got to, meet somebody for the very first time that I'm very nervous around, that I feel very insecure about. So how do you give yourself a fake bit of confidence, even to get yourself over that hump, right? That's what I've had to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's finding that way to do that is key in whatever you're doing, whether it's comics related, whatever we do for our day job in terms of
whatever we call it here.
Yeah, exactly. Like whatever
Sorry,
this
guys. I had to run around the estate. We had a situation where, like, I call it the estate because it's huge, but one of my the people I live with, they forgot to leave their door closed a few moments ago, and the issue with my dog about 5 months ago. So I'm super vigilant. Yeah.
Sure.
So he's like, "Oh, I think I forgot to close the door," and I was like, "Well, she can't open the door." He's like, "All she has to do is jump up and lean on the knob." I'm like, "Holy shit, I gotta go," because Brady just went outside, so I bolted around, and then I locked myself out because I forgot that I don't usually go up that way, so I forgot my key. I had to go out their back entrance and run back down to my back entrance and shoo the cat and dog away, and that's why I'm out of breath.
No, that's fine. That's kind of funny. My cat can open doors as well.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Rogue, but this isn't an American bulldog that can open doors.
Yeah,
so it's a lot worse.
See, Rogue was never able to open doors. She just demanded they open for her, and she was right.
So, yeah, that is.
Yes, I will say, unfortunately, since the last time we spoke, my fur baby we've had to help.
Really sorry to hear that.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that sucks. No.
I know, she was a fun guest to have on the show sometimes.
She was
putting in her commentary. So
I didn't mean to interrupt you guys. I didn't want you to think I
wasn't.
No,
not at all, Joe. It's fine.
Yeah,
I just assumed you didn't never suffer from imposter syndrome, Joe, because you're very boisterous and you always come off very confident.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I practice. But I don't know what you guys are probably discussing more along the lines.
I think you're having more tech issues, man. You sounded like you were at the beginning of a rap song.
This rap game. There's a deep cut if anybody recognizes that one. But
I 100% didn't.
I love it. Oh, is he there? Is he gone?
I don't know. This is
Oh no.
I can hear background stuff.
Can you hear the background stuff?
Yeah,
is it my background stuff? Now I don't know.
Maybe.
I silenced and then unsilenced. Did he go away?
It didn't. I don't think it did.
Okay, so I don't think it was me. Oh, Joe.
This is that awkward moment where we're all just kind of waiting for Joe to show up.
Well, it's Yom Kippur, so maybe Joe's atoning today. I don't know. As we film,
No,
I'm
can
fasting.
you hear me?
There you
Yeah,
are.
there we go.
Jesus. Okay, so this rap game D12. But,
There it is.
Or it might be on the Eminem show.
Wow, this is
call was
Joe.
com-
This is
so-
why you and me are friends.
Yeah.
Right there. Look at
This
that.
is high level. A call was coming through, and I couldn't get to on the iPhone where you put focus and not disturb.
Mm.
And it just kept
Mhm.
coming through, and I kept hearing you guys going, "Oh no, is he having more technical difficulty issues?" I'm like, "No, he's not."
Yeah.
It's like an episode of Friends.
Yeah, it's every week you get one of these calls, every week.
Oh,
And
ridiculous! It's like they
and-
know.
yeah, sometimes I usually try and cut it out, but I'm going to leave this one in because it was just kind of amusing.
That's fine. That's
I-
fine.
leave that there.
Yeah.
Was it somebody asking for a political donation, Joe? Is my guess. Like I
No,
feel
it was
like
not. No, it was an actual friend that I.
Oh, okay,
I
got it.
sent to voicemail, and I was like, "No, not now."
Well,
Because
see,
you know,
I
I'm busy.
appreciate you prioritizing the show.
Absolutely. I really want to. I've been excited for this. So another Friends reference, Team Jam is
Mhm.
back. Put your hands together. If you get that one, Matthew.
Ooh, yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So I'm super excited because I wanted to talk to you about the Mr. McMahon documentary. And I know Alex
Indeed.
is going to chime in. Alex, you should have just watched episode 3. It was very Bret Hart heavy.
Yeah, I watched episode 1. I didn't get a chance to watch episode 3 because we weren't. I wasn't home for the last couple of days. We ended up going on a road trip.
Oh,
So-
and Aurora Borealis too.
I mean,
Yeah.
I will say, Revenge of the Sith, Mr. McMahon is better than Phantom Menace episode of
Oh
Mr.
my
McMahon.
God,
I will say that.
absolutely. So I mean, it built slow. I think it built very slow coming out the gate. It gave you a lot of history and exposition. So I was at a horror convention,
Mhm.
and I forget
Okay.
the woman's name, but there was this drop dead gorgeous woman who's in something called Cinderella's Revenge or whatever. So I was Alex, I sent you the interviews that I got, and then I have a few that I wasn't able to send you because the file's too big, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. But so I walk over, and I could have interviewed her, and
Mhm.
it was one of those things where I was like, I'm not going to interview her just to interview. I feel disingenuous. And it was I told my cousin, I'm like, I don't know her body of work, but good Lord, do I wish I knew her body of work because, she's absolutely stunning. But what was funny was she thought I wanted to interview her
Mhm.
because I struck up a conversation with her handler who was wearing a John Cena shirt and I was wearing a CM Punk shirt. And she was just watching these two nerds go back at it for 15 minutes. And she was like, yeah, so I'm in. I'm like, that's great. I'm like, so what is your thoughts on why do you think Cena's going to end his career? And she just got shut down.
I feel like we just learned something very lovely about Joe, Alex, which is that Joe is very ethical. He does not use his position in media to hit on women. So
Yeah,
I really appreciate that, Joe. Look at you.
I agree.
Being a
And-
respectable person like that.
right?
Yeah.
And the fact that you're not going to try and get someone on the show that you have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
If I go back and watch it and I see her at Rhode Island, sorry about
Well,
my
that's
dog.
No, but then
But
you'll
if you go back and watch her stuff, then you've seen it,
Yeah.
right? Then you know what's going
Right.
on.
Yeah, I just didn't I had two options. One, I could always let her plug whatever she's got going on and go in blind. Two, I could fake it like some people would and be like, oh yeah, it's so big fan, and I'm not disingenuous. I'm like, listen, people
I
don't understand
think
that this is what I do for my fun time. It's not my
Yeah.
day job. So I go in it
I
from a
think
fan's
that-
perspective.
the danger of letting someone plug something when you don't know who they are,
Exactly.
right? Like you don't
Absolutely.
know what they're doing. Like I'm not saying we vet every single guest that comes on the show, but we
Right.
try
Like
and
me.
do as much.
We
I
try.
didn't honestly, when Matthew reached out, I'm like, yeah, sure, come on, because I knew
Yeah.
of you, right? So, but
Well, we knew
there are
of his
people
work.
But there you go,
exactly,
reputation. But there you go,
exactly.
Alex.
That's
That's
And a
that's
as
just it. Like,
sterling
to
reputation.
bring it all back
yeah,
around. Reputation.
yeah, and we have folks that come on that we do research on because we're like,
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
you're welcome to come on, but let me at least find out what it is that you want to talk about.
Yeah. So, I mean, I
Because
don't know if anyone's ever seen Ghost Hunters. You ever seen that show, Ghost Hunters?
I feel like I've caught an episode here or there.
It's called Taps. So, what I didn't know is I was wearing a CM Punk shirt to a horror convention for my second day, and that got me over more than anything I did the whole weekend. Like everyone kept talking to me. So, there's this guy who's been on Ghost Hunters, Dustin Perry. He's a paranormal,
Mhm.
expert. He was like, "Hey, Punk, what's up?" And I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I thought he was like, I was like, he's not going to interview me because I was walking around the convention the night before. Just sometimes you get a vibe from people. Like my camera, I had a buddy who was being my cameraman on the GoPro, and like he was just kind of giving us like the staring vibes, and I was like, "All right, stop taking footage of people that don't want footage taken care of." But all of a sudden he walked by. He's like, "Yo, Punk," and I was like, "Oh, what's up?" I'm like, "You're a wrestling fan?" He's like, "Oh God." And then he said something about he was misused in AEW, and I said, "Oh shit." And my cousin Steven's like, "Oh God, here we go." And he's like, "Hi, Joe, Dustin Joe." And he's like, and I'm like, "Yeah, would you like to do an interview?" He's like, "Sure." I said, "Just like 2-3 minutes." It turned out to be like 14 minutes that I shaved down to 7, and I still have to finish it. But like 6 minutes of it is us talking wrestling. And then he was like, "Oh yeah, and I'm a paranormal," you know. But he's got like a lot of cool things. But it was just like, that's the beauty of wrestling, people, if you're listening, and I hope you are. It brings a lot of people together. It is so cross promotional and cross
Mhm.
pollinating. You don't
Absolutely.
realize like horror and wrestling and like, you know,
I
it just
think that's the
everything
case
goes
with
together.
so well that's just like you said, everything goes together. Like so many fandoms that we're all a part of. Like I may not be the biggest wrestling fan, but if I saw someone walk by in a I think well case in point at last convention I was at, I was walking around in a full print Wolverine shirt with I think he's
Nice.
John Burns, Larry Hammer's up, and it's
Larry
just like
Hammer's a writer,
yeah, it's not him then.
so it's
Um,
Sean Byrne.
it must be John Byrne, yeah. So
Yeah,
anyway, the point is that it's just full Wolverine, like front and back. It's the full print,
right. That's
and
cool.
there was a guy at the desk. He's, oh, that's a cool shirt, and we chatted for the better part of 10 minutes.
It's an icebreaker that you wouldn't
Yep,
expect. And was it Brown Suit
exactly.
Wolverine?
It was Brown Suit Wolverine. Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, so I know.
So, but
So
I
But
mean, I was
speaking,
at
mhm.
yeah, that's just like to Matthew's point earlier. I was at the convention as a guest, so I never was like, I'm not going to try and interview anyone because I'm here just to hang out, walk around, and
That's my
do my
thing.
thing. Like I'm not.
Yeah,
It's
I do the same
and
thing. I'm press, guest, and consumer all in
uh
three. I have to. I have a rule. I can't leave a convention. Otherwise, it's an unsatisfying convention if I don't leave with something like a trinket. Well, I went a little overboard on my trinket this past time. So I was walking around and I had my eye on this mecha Hellboy from Dark Horse.
Mhm.
It's Dark Horse licensed. Thing weighs like 3 pounds. It's like, I don't know, 13 inches. It's gorgeous. Mhm.
wait. So when you do that, because I assume you drive to Rhode Island, right? Because I'm
Oh
thinking in
yeah,
my,
always. I
I was
always
like,
drive to every convention.
yeah, I was like,
So
man,
far,
if I was going to Rhode Island, I'd have to probably fly down because it's easier. And like,
have to
I don't know
fly
if I could
down.
take 3 pounds worth of stuff
Yeah,
back, but that makes more sense when you're driving.
yeah. No, no, no. I have to fly down. I mean, I'm working on conventions that I would like to fly out to. Like one day, I've been invited multiple times to do San Diego Comic Con. Brett has, offered it to me. It's
Mm,
just, it is so expensive. Like honestly, like you know how
yeah.
you and the wife go to Disney, Alex.
Yep.
It's something like that, but even more because it's 4 days. Cali ain't cheap, and
No,
it's
it's
like
not.
Disney World.
No.
Like you don't. People think, oh my god, because Brett has told me. He said, everyone thinks that it's you get there and it's wide open and it's like a kid's playground. He's like, you got to pick and choose your spots. He's like, it's like 2 attractions a day you get to see out of, you know, the hundreds that are there,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's the way the lines are. So,
Oh
I
man,
mean,
the lines are nuts out there.
I can't even imagine, Matthew, you've done it. So like, but has it been a fun experience?
What, San Diego?
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I was an idiot this time when I went for Penguin Random House, and I tried to do it way too quickly, and I think I literally had half an hour to actually see the show because I was just
That's what
doing
I'm saying.
so many meetings
Right.
with retailers out there. Because to the earlier point, like I was there to be for Penguin Random House first, not a consumer.
Exactly. So if I had went, I would want to be, it would be like, I don't want to go to Galaxy's Edge to interview people. I want to go to Galaxy's Edge to experience Galaxy's Edge. So if I went, I feel like it would be better to go as just straight up Joe Blow, go in there and just, that's terrible analog, but just go in there and just experience it. But at the same time, press passes do afford you certain amenities that others don't, like lines and certain things. So it's like, it would be tough because I'd have to pull and produce work, but at the same time, I'd have to try to find fun. And I know me, it would be like a dog at a fire hydrant convention with the collectibles. I'd be screwed. I'd just miss a day on just collectibles. You know what I mean? I know me. So it's one of those things that's on my list, but I think I want to start with New York Comic Con first, get my feet wet. And I'm not doing it this time. I was supposed to. It fell through with my buddy. But I want to do like Raleigh. I do want to do GalaxyCon. I want to do like those and get those under my belt. And there's one in Florida too that I'd like to do. Not really
MegaCon?
right now. Yeah, not really right
Yeah.
now for Florida, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
MegaCon was fun. I've done that one before.
yeah,
It's been
so
many years, but I hear great things the last few years about MegaCon. Baltimore Comic Con,
I did
fabulous
Baltimore
show.
with Brett.
Yeah.
I've done it with Brett. That's actually where I met Brett. There's one picture of me and him.
Sure.
I didn't
You could
realize
try.
how much taller I am than him.
You could also try like C2E2 is a great
That
one.
I'd like to
So,
do just because I've never
I
been to Chicago.
I had a pass to C2E2 and then wasn't able to actually make it out there. So I was halfway there, but it didn't.
Now, Alex, if
didn't
we
fall
were
through.
to do that,
oh
if you were
no.
to do C2E2, that would work for you, right? Because that's not the hardest. Oh no, you're coming from PEI. My geography is awful.
Yeah, you're joking.
So
Yeah,
it's
it
yeah,
East
still a
East
haul.
Coast is way better. It just happened that my company has an office, so it would have worked out in a lot of different ways, and it just
Sure.
almost every way it would have worked out fell through. So
Yeah.
I will also give a shout out, Joe, and to you, Alex, too, if you
Please.
ever want to. South Carolina Comic Con is fabulous.
Is that the one in November?
So they have a South Carolina Comic Con Junior. I believe it's in November or October, and then their big one is I think it's early April next year. I think it's April 7th or 8th.
Probably catch that because
And they are very heavy into bringing in pro wrestlers, Joe.
that would be it.
They get a lot of them. So
There's
it's
WrestleCon
absolutely worth
too.
checking out. Yeah, WrestleCon, I think this past year was in Winston-Salem, something like that.
I'm gonna check that out eventually. But like right now it's onwards to Rhode Island Comic Con, which Matthew, I'd love to have you up there someday. I think it would be great to just, shoot the shit and hang out.
Yeah, I'm down.
And that would be one that you can maneuver around and things. It's huge though. It is huge. There's usually about 100,000 people over the course of 3 days.
People. Wow.
Over the course of 3
good.
days, it's about 100,000.
Massive.
Yeah, so
that's
it's usually like 30.
that still works out to be about 30-some thousand across
every day. Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, it's that's the biggest one I've been to. Well, no, I shouldn't. I'm not gonna lie. Boston's the biggest one I went to, and Boston had like 40, 45, 50.
Was it
And
Fan
Boston,
Expo?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
I would love
wild.
to go. I would love to go up and do Fan Expo Boston at some point.
I would like you to go up there and do it, and I just hope you get a fair shake because I did business with them years ago, and I'm just not the biggest fan of like how they handled things. And it's just because of their guest policies and stuff. Like, I don't know if you see online, like a year ago or 2 years ago, like she was Sasha Banks at that time, but you had to be like a block away to take a picture with her. and
Oh,
you
wow.
still, and it's like ridiculous. Like you don't, and people are paying like 125 to stand like 15 feet away from her. Like, I mean, it's
Sure.
not even.
Yeah,
So
when we were down at Dragon Con, my wife was able to get right up next to Stephen Amell, to the like, as in
that's
like
awesome.
he fully hugged her, and like the guests were as close as they wanted to get and felt comfortable getting
Yeah.
with the fans. So
Alex, when was
um,
Dragon Con?
I went pre-pandemic, so I don't know when it is
Mm,
now.
Okay, it's funny because that
I think
came
it's
up in,
August.
yeah, that came up in my
It's
icebreaker
summer.
for my new
Yeah.
job. Like we were on a Zoom, we were
Okay,
on a Teams call, and it was like, "What do you do when, like, name a fun fact about yourself?" And I was like, "Oh, well, when I'm not J and Jing, I'm, my day job, I'm covering conventions up and down the East Coast." And they're like, "What kinds of conventions?" And my boss is like so cool. She was like, "What kind of conventions?" I'm like, "Comic book, horror, things like that." And all of a sudden, this voice goes, "Did you go to Dragon Con?" And she's like, "Oh, hi, Joe, Haley, you've met Joe. Nice to meet you." She's like, "This is gonna go great." And like, the whole meeting turned into like every convention I've been to. And
that's
they're super,
fantastic though.
That's
they're
wonderful.
super supportive
Yeah,
though. They're like, "When's Rhode Island?"
Congrats
I
on
was
the
like,
new job,
yeah.
man.
"It's kicking my ass, guys. It really is." That's why I got on at 9:02. I woke up at like 8:40. I It is just a data dump every day.
Yeah,
Give you an idea, I had a 3-hour Teams call yesterday to pretty much end my day, and I'm like,
That's
that's
so
a hard
long.
way. That's a
yeah.
hard way to end the day.
That's rough. That's rough on a Friday. Given like
Yeah.
I mean, I was off this week, but I will always book my Friday evening,
Are
Friday
you?
afternoons.
Was yesterday a holiday for you, Alex? Because Monday's
No,
a
I just have the
holiday.
week. I just have the week off.
Monday's the Thanksgiving for you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Matthew's right. August 28th to 21st is in 2025 for Dragon Con in Atlanta,
Okay,
Georgia.
I might
I've never
consider that.
been. I really want to
I
go.
I
That's
also
You want
one
to go,
I'd love to
realized
Matthew?
see. It's something I would like to do. Yeah, I've never been. That's one show that I'm like, I just
You
want to
swing
see it.
that.
I just hear
Swing
so
that.
many incredible things
yeah.
about how fun it is. So
If
I
you
had
want to
said
set that
Dragon
up,
Con
I can
earlier
swing
that
it.
I had gone to. It was MegaCon in Orlando that I had gone to.
yeah,
It was one of those
I'd
things.
like
It's
to
like,
go to
there's something
Dragon
wrong
Con.
about this thing.
But reeling it back, because true to form, we did not keep on topic whatsoever. I think,
Honestly, I've actually so far I've got Joe, Alex, and Matthew hang out and talk about conventions, which isn't what they were supposed to talk about as the show notes.
perfect.
which is
So
very on brand for us.
very on
I
point.
And
just want to get
but
a
still
couple points for
a
you.
good still a good
Oh,
conversation in there.
Always a
Yeah.
great
that's
conversation.
just it. Like it's one of those things where I don't think it's a bad thing. It's not like we've
No,
been sitting here
No.
talking
you know
about,
what? Yeah,
you know,
As
the
opposed to
weather or
talking about
whatever.
an accused sexual predator for
yeah. Which is
yeah.
what we're about to talk about. No, it's what Alex and I created is, the vibe is just two dudes talking and you kind of
Hmm.
spliced in their phone line. Matthew fits in with that. That is absolutely what
Yep.
you are our third piece, Matthew. You are like,
Aw.
so I mean,
I
there's
one of
Another
no
the
one
member
else
of the
we gel with
tripod.
the same
Yeah.
way.
yeah.
You're on the tripod. But
Thank you.
I guess speaking of scary things,
Sure.
it's Halloween, it's spooky season. So I mean, we can pivot from McMahon, which is kind of scary, but I'm on a Halloween like horror movie kick, a slasher kick, just so to speak, because like that's my bread and butter. I love slasher movies, even when they're stupid. So I've burned through Scream 1 and I'm on 5 right now, and that was in the
Uh,
past like couple days.
they've made 5 of them.
Oh, they
They
made
made 6.
6.
Oh, gee.
And
My niece, one of their favorite franchises and movies is
I
Scream.
love it. I think it's just such a great character design too that was so
Mm.
accidental. The way
Absolutely.
they made Ghostface so iconic, it's just it's so perfect because everyone can be Ghostface and everyone has. The only problem is, Matthew, are you a fan of that series?
So I grew up terrified just in general. So scary movies were not my thing in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But Scream was the first one because I was like 10 when it came out.
Yeah.
It was
I
sort
was
of
the
the
same way.
first one that I was able to sort of make myself sit through and be like, it's okay to be scared sort of deal. So I always have a
And I
special
think it's
place for
good
Scream.
because it's basically it's meta before meta, like it's a movie within a movie. And then if you
Right.
watch Scream 3, it's a movie within a movie within a movie because it's built like there's a movie set on it that's
Right.
talking about her life, which is, based on the real movie. So like it's just a good franchise. It's hokey. If you ignore the fact that everyone is invulnerable, and if you don't get stabbed at least 9 times, you're going to live, because
Sure.
everyone has been stabbed. Like, people get stabbed like no problem in this movie, and it's like, oh, 'tis a flesh wound, like Monty Python. Like, I mean, I was watching it last night. This little tiny girl, she gets stabbed right in the abdomen with this huge Bowie knife. And then Act 3, she comes back, and they're like, I thought you were. No, he just missed me to the side. I'm like, how? The knife was the size of your waist. Like, I don't know how, but like, it's one of those things you ignore for logic. But
So I'm not a huge slasher guy. I've never like what are the Mount Rushmore
okay,
slasher
easy,
films,
super
not
easy
icons,
for
but
me.
films.
Okay, super easy. 1978 Halloween, #1 with a
Yeah,
bullet.
I've never seen it.
John Carpenter. It's classic. It's still scary to this day.
I was
It's
talking to
just,
Lauren about it and being like, that should be our Halloween watch,
you
because even
need to
she's
watch it.
interested this year in
You have
watching
to
a
watch
scary
it.
movie. So
It's
okay,
scary, but it's not. It's mental scary. It's much more suspense. Like, there's kills in it, but the
sure,
kill is tame compared to, like, if you watched the 2018 remake of Halloween to what just ended last year. You watch those; those are like violently bloody. So
okay.
it would be 1978 Halloween. Scream #1 would be #2.
Ooh, wow.
Um,
All right.
yeah, oh yeah, no, I'm that way. I'm very particular. I would say The Devil's Rejects is one of my favorites
Hmm.
too, by
Isn't
Rob
that a Rob
Zombie.
That's Rob
Zombie?
Zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yep. So that would be #3. I know that's a weird pick. And then it would be, um, the final would be Nightmare on Elm Street 4: Dream Warriors with Freddy Krueger.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. But Halloween is paramount. Halloween's #1.
I feel like
Halloween,
yeah.
fun fact, if you go
Hmm.
back and watch Scream, there's footage of Halloween going in the movie
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes,
when
I
they're at
remember
the
that.
parties.
They're at the
Yeah.
parties.
So
Yeah.
like when Jamie Lee Curtis is going into, like when Michael Myers is going into the closet to get Jamie Lee Curtis, you have Ned Campbell inside the closet where they're trying to go in and get her, and she comes out the same time she comes out, and it's like a mirror. It's really well done.
That's really cool.
Scream is so good because it's just a satire commentary on the Halloween genre.
Mhm.
Like, it
Right.
basically, like, Jamie Kennedy, we all remember him from the 90s. He was like the residential expert in the movies, and he would give people these lists of rules. And it's so funny that no one thought of these before this movie was made, because they're so obvious. Like, don't say I'll be right back. Always, like all the stuff that, like, the tropes, like, oh, if you lose your virginity, you're gonna die. And it's just like, oh my God, it's so 100% factual.
What I enjoy about Scream being a satire is that then you have Scary Movie, which is
Oh, this
trying
is
to
satire.
satire Scream, and it's like it's got to go so far beyond what you would
Yeah.
expect because of
Yeah.
what it is.
But I'll admit, Scary Movie is actually good. It's funny.
Oh,
Oh
It's
yeah.
very funny.
it's
Yeah.
the
But I was,
unfortunate thing for Scary Movie is that that one is actually good, whereas so many of them after that are just or they're overblown, or you didn't need them. But because
right,
the
what I
first one
was,
made a ton of money,
Like the
they
Pirates of
kept
the Caribbean franchise.
exactly, there were
Absolutely.
6 of those. There was 6 of those. But no, like,
yeah.
the way I think of it is, or Harry Potter. I don't care. All you Potter people, come
I mean,
after me.
the thing is with
Come
Wow.
after me. Come
I
after
think
me.
the thing is with Harry Potter, there was 6 books, so the fact that they made 7 movies
7.
out of it,
There's
That's
7
fine.
books.
I get
No,
it. There's 7
no,
books now, but
I'm
at the
all set.
time when they did the, I think there was is Curse of the Golden Child is the screenplay that she wrote,
That's the stage
Yeah.
play.
stage play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's definitely them making the movies per book
Yeah.
make sense. I
Yeah.
don't
No.
feel,
Understood.
regardless of what I think about J.K. Rowling, I don't think that they overblew Harry Potter in terms of movies like they did with
It
The
just
Hobbit.
wasn't my. I don't know. It wasn't my
Yeah,
thing.
like
Well, the Hobbit shouldn't be one full movie, let alone
the
3
Hobbit.
3-hour movies.
Yeah, that's just it. The Hobbit should have at
Well,
best been a 4-hour movie. It didn't need to be
so
as long as it was.
I have this argument all the time with a good friend of mine. He is a what the heck's his name? The author of why can't I think of his name? We talk about it all. Tolkien. James R. Tolkien. No, that's I'm thinking. No, James. It's Tolkien, right?
J.R.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Tolkien,
did Lord
yeah.
of the Rings.
J.R. He didn't.
He did.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. So my issue is I read those in school. I read them in middle school.
Okay.
It was like a class book report, and I picked one of those. I think it was The Two Towers. And it was like, why did I do this to myself? Because I have to read this whole thing because you commit to the book before you sign it and say, I'm going to do this book. And I was like, oh, the cover just looks great. And one thing I found out is this is where I learned to want to become a writer. And it's funny because it's not in a flattering way. It's the fact that Tolkien takes so long and so much exposition on every page to explain one inanimate object that you talk about a slog. It's an absolute slog. So when I wrote and started writing, I realized I want to get a little bit more brevity because it's just, and people revere this work. Now,
Yes.
I will say 100%, I think the movies are better than the books. I'm sorry, I do. The books are very hard to get through. But the movies
books were
are
also written 50, 60 years ago too, right? So it was a different style of writing back then. Like I read,
but the
what
movies
did I read?
are hard to get through too.
Well, and because of the success of Tolkien, fantasy
Right.
changed
Yes.
as a
Right.
genre. Everybody then started to emulate Tolkien. And
Yeah.
if you read,
oh,
like, the Lord of the
God.
Rings books themselves are not that long. They're a few
No,
hundred
they're not.
pages each.
No.
But every fantasy writer took the style and
Yeah.
ended up padding it and padding it and padding it so
Right.
that then you get those 500, 600 page
Yeah, you
fantasy
get
novels.
phone books, and it's
Absolutely.
like, no.
I just finished
Explaining every
a
bit of history and yeah.
I just finished an 800-page book that is the first book in a trilogy, and that
Oh.
is
What's the
almost
book?
The First Binding by R.R. Verdi.
Okay.
Have you read the Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss?
I've not. No.
Okay,
No.
so fuck it. Rothfuss wrote The Name of the Wind in 2007.
Okay.
He at the time said all three the trilogy was done. It is
Sure. They always say
2024.
that.
Yeah. So in 2024, as I say this, the second book came out in 2011.
Oh my God.
We have not had the third book yet.
It's ridiculous. He must be hanging out with George R.R. Martin.
I think the difference is George R.R. Martin has written himself into a corner and has continued to be productive with other things.
Right.
Like within the Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire world. He's trying to finish it.
Sure. I mean, sorry. I don't buy that.
I mean, the thing is, at this point, any ending he has, like his ending is out there through the TV show. It was just done significantly worse than what he would have intended to do.
Him being, oh, I'm working on it is right up there with Dr. Dre saying he's going to release Detox since 2010. Like,
So here's the thing. So if Rothfuss had the book finished in 2007, as he said, it's now almost 20 years later, and it still hasn't come out.
Why is it taking so long? Why?
So I think that he's done a lot of rewrites, and they're not, he struggles with mental health, and they haven't been as good as he wants them to be. So
sure,
the timeline sucks, but
yeah,
it is what it is. There's other issues there that I don't really want to get into because I don't want to put Matthew in a position where you work in that kind of industry.
Right.
So anyway, the first Binding.
I can't comment.
I know.
But you can comment. You can.
That's
I can
just
listen.
it. Like you can listen.
I will take your feedback. For
how about speaking of things that don't suck?
Hang on. So let me before I finish it. So the first Binding is essentially The Name of the Wind. It's a very similar structure, very similar story beats. The second book is already out, and this is why I wanted to delve into Rothfuss a bit. The third book in Rothfuss trilogy is supposed to be called The Doors of Stone. Verdi has called his second book The Doors of Midnight. I think it's a hilarious way of him saying, you're never going to finish this. This is how I would write and how I would finish the story. And
So it's like
if
a
I'm,
troll.
it's a troll, but the thing is, he's
Ugh.
doing it better. The first book,
Yeah.
I preferred the first binding more
Wow.
than I did The Name of the Wind.
That's interesting. Sometimes people take a concept that's really great and then just
Film,
build upon it and
comics,
make it
theater,
better. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
every industry
Yeah.
somehow hits on a
Absolutely.
similar concept, or we're just influenced by things that we've read and we're like, God, I want to make my version of that, right?
And-
Like,
Yeah,
look,
and
who
that's just
doesn't
it, like,
wanna make their
Twi-
version of something?
50 Shades of Grey is Twilight fan fiction,
absolutely.
Yeah, pretty much.
right? Like,
So
And Twilight is just, Anne Rice fan fiction,
yeah,
basically.
pretty
and
much,
that's just
yeah,
it. Like,
very
it's
much. Yeah.
so like I regardless of my feelings about Rothfuss and his inability to finish things and the broken promises along the way, that aside, if I put both books next to each other, I would be more likely to read the next R.R. Verdi book than the next Rothfuss book.
But also, you wouldn't necessarily have first binding if you didn't have Name of the Wind, right? So
yeah,
you've gotta,
and that's
Right.
just it. So like Verdi has written several books in the time that it's taken Rothfuss to not
I
write
would
the third
imagine
book.
so.
So it's yeah, it's one of those things where I'm happy that we've got it, but at this point, Rothfuss has, unfortunately, for a long time, I would not pick up a new book by a new author unless the second or third book was already out. Like unless they finished the first trilogy or first series,
Yeah.
I'm not. I've been burnt before. I'm not doing this, and then I realized that all I'm doing then is then hurting new authors. So like I've been reading stuff by Nicholas Eames, where his first book is phenomenal. He's got a second book out now, also really good. But unless you're willing to never get the second book, like it's a risk that you do have to take.
sure.
And I think that too many people have not read books by newer authors because they have been burnt by Martin, by Rothfuss, and people who can't finish. So I know that time is the all thing. Sorry, I think I can hear a cat kind of come in.
Yeah.
There you go.
They are welcome.
He is always welcome. But he is, they're always trying to do their thing where you have, it just takes time to write. And I get it, right? I 100% understand it. I think what's upsetting people with certain things is broken promises. We're like, oh, we're going to have this out. And it doesn't come. Whereas if you're like, it will come out when it's ready, fair play.
Well,
write it, right? So,
and
deal with that. You're a professional.
I think too, it's a management of expectations
responsibility to produce a product that you said you were going to do. That's where I stand on it. If you were writing this for no profit.
No, I disagree with that to the extent where if Matthew, for example, you don't have a responsibility to give me a sequel to Crashing, right? You don't have but like you don't have a responsibility to do that. I will never be upset if you say, "Oh, I'm not going to do this."
But I didn't advertise that I was going to do one.
If he does,
if you said,
it's a different story. But he's our guy. He would never do that.
Yeah, exactly. So if you said, "Hey, I'm going to write it. I have a sequel for Crashing ready to go. It's already and done. It's going to be released on this date," and then we're like 3 years later, and like,
yeah.
So I understand things can happen, and I get that.
I love this segue that you've put in, Alex. So because it is about managing expectations, and this is something that I do have to deal with in my job, in my day job, and as a creator, right? And managing expectations is everything in a fandom. We see it go very, very wrong, like Joker 2.
I haven't seen it yet, but
nor have I. But it doesn't matter because you can tell expectations are not being met based on the performance and the chatter that's out there, right? And the reviews and everything. So, whereas Harry Potter gave you exactly what you were promised,
right?
To take it all back, like yes, it was 8 movies for 7 books, but they said we will give you faithful adaptations of these
Right.
books.
Exactly.
We promised that you would get all these movies. We promised that we would keep the same actors for
Yep.
the entirety of the series, and they absolutely delivered on all those
Mhm.
promises, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, again, to George R. R. Martin, keeps promising this book, never going to give it to you.
Right.
And
I
it
don't
does
believe
change your
that was-
relationship with the consumer.
I don't believe that was his ending on Game of Thrones. I truly don't believe that was his ending. That was HBO
We'll never
execs
know.
going.
No,
That was HBO execs sitting around a coffee table going, "We need an ending." Do it.
I think
You
it
can't convince me
was
otherwise.
I think it was his ending in terms of these are the beats I want to hit.
Yeah, maybe.
What I think was not his ending was them saying, okay, so we've spent so long saying how long it takes to get from point A to point B.
Yeah,
we're just gonna do that in 30 seconds.
40
So I
minutes,
think
we're gonna defeat
I
the
definitely think they
Endless
rushed
Knight.
the ending.
Yeah.
I think it
Well,
probably could have had
We've
probably
talked
could
about
have had
this
an
before.
additional season or more in it. So
We've talked about this before. The production didn't care at the end. You'll find Starbucks cups if you go back and watch the show.
yeah,
And you
I
pay
remember
attention.
watching it live, and there's a but you could see there's a Starbucks
You saw the
cup there.
Aquafina bottles
Yep.
with Cersei. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it's just like, okay, this is some sloppy editing here.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, what's his name? What I'm so bad with names today, but the guy who plays Jon Snow, Kit
Kit
something,
Harington.
Yep.
saying,
Yeah.
I cried at the end of the reading. You cried for that ending?
Well, hang on.
Sir.
I will say there's a very big difference between reading a script and a table reading than the final product.
Okay.
I worked for an off-Broadway company for years,
Oh, okay.
and we had an incredible table reading of a show called Bunty Berman Presents that was
Mhm.
to this day the best table read I've ever been involved in. Absolutely
Mhm.
incredible. And then the show was just so plagued with issues from the main actor like dropping out of the show during preview
Yeah.
performances, like things like that, and the show just never found its footing. But it was one of the best table reads experiences of my life. So I will give Mr. Harrington a little bit of grace on that claim, just because I've
And
been.
we also don't know, in addition to that, how the
How
script
did the script
changed.
change?
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
You're right. That's true. Now, Matthew,
Sir,
the Batman fan you are, not
I have
necessarily
read
Robert
Absolute
Pattinson.
Batman.
Okay. So I don't want to ruin it for Alex. But like, wow.
So
like,
here's what I
so
love.
far of a retelling that I've ever seen.
And that's what I love about it.
I love every beat.
One of the things that Absolute and Ultimate lines promise
Oh yeah, they're killing it right now.
is we're gonna take big swings with the characters.
So good.
It doesn't even matter from whether or not it's your own personal taste that you like the swings being taken. The fact that, again, to your point, Alex, they are delivering on your expectation, that they are giving you the reimagining, a complete reimagining, right? I think wins this book a lot of kudos and enthusiasm, regardless if we end up personally enjoying every decision that they make. It doesn't matter, because they gave us exactly what we were told we would get, which is this is a completely different take on Batman, and for that I applaud it, and I really like it, and it feels Elseworlds. I mean, DC is really good at giving you completely different takes of characters. They're known for it. So I'll be very interested. Like, I'm super psyched for the Jason Aaron Superman and the Kelly Thompson, Hayden Sherman coming to Wonder Woman is going to be crazy good. I cannot wait for that. So yeah, great first effort.
I did not expect this at all. Once I saw Snyder was writing it, I was like, okay, I'm all in, because I love Scott Snyder. But he doesn't hit everything out of the park, for sure. But what happened was I saw the model art. I was like, what the hell is this? He looks like he's, Zangief from what's it called? Street Fighter 2 Alpha with a Batman mask. Like he is just. First of all, my only thing is, and it's the only nitpick I have about the book.
Don't
There
spoil
should
it.
not be no, but it's not a spoiler. There should be no mystery in Gotham to who the fuck Batman is. Okay, if you see this guy and you see, his alter ego out and about, there should be zero mystery to who he is just for the body build. That's the only thing I'll say. However,
I completely agree with you on
yeah, I mean, it is the biggest suspension of disbelief I have ever seen, but that's okay because
Like
it's done
at least
so
when
well.
at least with Superman, it's the hunch and the shuffle, right? Like
This makes Superman look like a master of disguise.
So I was just reading, so I've been rereading all of Spider-Man like ASM from Brand New Day, because there was a lot of stuff that I
all
sort
of
of
it.
I'm reading every ASM issue, so not like
Brand
Friendly
New Day
Neighborhood
stuff.
Spider-Man or that stuff, like everything from Brand New Day all the way. I'm almost at Nick Spencer's run. I'm just about finished Dan Slott for Good, and then
I loved a lot of Dan Slott. I really did.
oh no, I'm not saying. I'm sorry. I've. It's just been so much of it.
Oh no, I
But
know,
I'm just.
no.
I know. I love it. I really love Dan's take on it. Um, but when I was I was reading it, and they have this arc in there about a new hero called Regent. Um,
God, horrible. Yeah.
but it is the funniest thing where it's very similar. Where it's like, how do you not recognize the body type from the suit design and everything from
Come
this
on.
very unique looking character, where it's like, look, it's not all about the face. Our bodies can also give us away very
Yeah,
easily.
exactly. It's
But
just,
superhero comics are like, if you can't recognize every single feature, if the face cannot open the iPhone, then there's no way you can recognize who that
listen, a
person is.
domino mask has fooled people who Robin and Nightwing are for decades. So I mean, it's a domino mask. If I
To be
throw on a
fair,
domino
generic
mask, you're gonna
white
know
guy
it's
with
me.
dark hair, sure.
yeah. It reminds me of Arrow season 1 where he would just use camo paint over his
Oh my
eyes and pull
god.
the hood up.
I know,
But
but Arrow season 1 was so good.
but see that they at least explained a way where he would never look at them. Where if he was
Right.
talking to someone he knew, he growled a bit and he'd always look down and slightly away. So it made sense. Like he would never actively look at someone he knew, right? So
Right.
I understood that, and that makes sense. So
And he had the hood.
yeah,
Yeah, the only
exactly. Like
issue was
the
Arrow
hood
was
was enough.
He had
Batman.
the hood.
Oliver Queen is a much more likable, outgoing character than they made him in that show. Like, but it still was great. I was hooked.
Arrow was a fantastic Batman show.
It was.
It was an epic
Absolutely
Batman
agree.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they even brought in Batman villains.
As he was established to be on Smallville, a great Batman on Smallville for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I get that Green Arrow has significant takings from early Batman, Arrow Cave, etc. So
Sure.
Yeah.
I think he had an Arrow car too, like an Arrow movie.
Like,
yeah.
It's one of those things now though, they're so different that he should never be a substitute for Batman. Like if you're gonna have if you need a Batman substitute, either use Vigilante or someone that you can modify slightly better. Because you can then still use Green Arrow down the road.
So I would say, Alex, you're gonna friggin' love Absolute Batman. I'll tell you, I thought the most radical Batman retelling I've ever seen before this, and this blows it out of the water as far as how far out the box it's gone. I thought Earth One was a radical Batman retelling, but and you think about it after reading this, it's not. And correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, because it still maintains a lot of the same story beats. The Wayne murders, Crime Alley, Alfred, Batman, the Arkham, all that stuff. It contains so much Batman lineage that you're like, okay, even though this isn't canon, I don't know what 616 is in DC, but it's not canon DC Prime. It's still Batman enough that I would recognize this anywhere on the earth.
Absolutely.
If you didn't call this thing Absolute Batman, you could get away with it not being Batman because it's that far different.
Have you ever read Wrong Earth?
What is it called? Wrong Earth?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I think I may have spoken to you about this one before, Matthew.
You did.
It's yeah, so
You spoke
it's
to me too.
Oh, yes, you have.
yeah.
Yep.
So for folks who haven't heard either of those shows, and there's no way you would have heard what, it's take Batman from 1966 and
Yep.
put him
Yep.
into the
Tim
Frank
Burton.
Miller verse,
Oh, the Frank
and
Miller.
then
Okay.
yeah, and then vice versa, and then you have a Batman in the modern world who uses bulletproof spray or
Yeah.
anti-bullet spray or something, and
Right.
for whatever reason, it actually seems to work.
That's
So
brilliant. I gotta read this.
it's absolutely fantastic, and
I've got to read this.
it works so much better if you're familiar with Batman. Like
Right.
the more familiar with Batman you are, the better this book becomes.
Yeah.
So my question to you both is, we've had a lot of reimaginings of Batman over the years
Yep.
in terms of just Elseworld stories. So do
Mhm.
you
Oh, yeah.
have any other favorite sort of reimaginings of the
Speeding
character?
Bullets
Speeding
I
Bullets.
love
for
Okay.
Elseworlds. I've always
Gotham by
liked that one.
Gaslight.
Gotham by
Gotham by
Gaslight.
Gaslight
Yep.
is great.
All-time classic.
Not the
Yep.
animated movie though. Don't watch that crap. That was horrible. And
Yeah,
then
no,
Doom Comes to Gotham is even worse, where it's the sequel to Gotham by Gaslight animated. Has nothing
Sure.
to do with Gotham by
Well-
Gaslight. It's just brutally bad.
And I apologize. I was referring. Do you have any favorite comic versions of reimagining?
Oh,
of
okay.
Batman? So you said Speeding Bullets. Yeah.
honestly, I didn't even think about the DC animated reimagining. So
Yeah, sorry.
there we go.
Yeah,
It's all good.
Speeding Bullets is a good one. There was one that was in the 90s. I think it was called The Brotherhood of the Bat.
Yes.
Where, yeah, I like that one. I've always dug that one.
Wasn't that like a 19? It was almost like set like 1940s gangster kind of vibe, or am I thinking of
No,
something else?
this was where Bruce's grandson, the grandson of Ra's al Ghul, was Batman, and it was all about his legacy. And I think now that I'm thinking about it, this is where I think Scott Snyder got the inspiration for the machine that would keep making Batman so Batman live on. Because it was
Gotcha.
like the League of Shadows. So if you ever look this thing up, it's called Batman. I think it's called Brotherhood of the Bat. And the cover is just literally like, I think it's Dan Jurgens drew the cover. If it's not Dan Jurgens, it's Graham Nolan. But it's like 50 Batman different outfits on the cover. And it's Elseworlds, but it's Talia al Ghul and Bruce Wayne's kid, not Damien. His name was like very Arabic. I forget his name, but he still looked like a very white guy. Like they just can't seem to convey the fact that like if it's gonna be, ethnic, it's like he's got the name and he's got everything, but he just still looks like Bruce Wayne 110%.
I think that's as much on the colorist as anything else, right? Because if the colorist doesn't have the freedom or the direction to do what they
It's editorial.
Yeah.
It's
I was
editorial's
gonna say,
problems. Yeah, without
as I was saying, it's like I'm blaming a colorist when it's not a colorist.
Yeah,
It'll be
so
editorial
I will
direction.
it's the
say-
editorial questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say a hot take here. Alex and I, we bonded and became friends over Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's run. That's how we met. That's how we've, stayed together.
Mm.
I have gone back and read some of it, and now I'm kind of spoiled for Greg Capullo's newer stuff. I'm starting to realize he's a very static artist. Like, he does costumes and action amazing. He doesn't do like day-to-day expressions well. Like, there'll be a scene if you read the dialogue, go back and read like Batman, what is it? 0 Year, some of it. And then read his stuff in Wolverine, which is just dreadful. But if you go back and look at the pictures, like it'll be a scene where the character is extremely pissed off, but they got like a blank look on their face. Like he seems to have a lot of static
So you're saying his
expression.
his acting's not great, is what we would call it.
Yeah, what his art acting, I guess. Oh yeah,
Yeah. So the character's expressions,
Yeah.
I've heard it referred to a lot as sort of like the acting of the character, so to speak.
It
in
makes sense because and trust me, he's one of my all-time favorites. I absolutely like adore them. But just he's more of a splash page poster on
Yes.
your wall kind of guy
Yes.
than the talking heads. I'm starting to realize it. And the other thing
And he
is,
has been since Spawn. He's always been
I
a
didn't see
splash
this in
page kind of
Spawn
guy.
though. I never saw this to this level. Like Sam and Twitch always had expression and things like that. But it's just like even when I went back and I was reading, Death of the Family, I'm sitting there going, "Oh my god!" Like the dialogue, which is brilliant, isn't matching up with the characters' faces. Like somebody tell the character to feel on this panel, please, because like
I
it's confusing to me.
I
Jim
think
Lee's
that
the same way.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that there's a lot of and I use quotations here slightly, but a lot of great comic book artists have a reputation of being phenomenal because of their posters and splash pages, and that's
Yes, Jim
totally
Lee.
fine. Like I
Jim Lee.
totally understand that. But I think when you get someone like Miko Suyan and Juan Jose Reap, who are just all round phenomenal in everything they do,
Yeah.
that it you notice it that much more when you see an expression.
Oh, it's a huge difference.
Like I remember reading Wrath of the Eternal Warrior 6 or 7 where Rip is on, and the rage in some of the faces is just like you can see that these people have absolutely no coherent thought behind what what they're doing, and there's no
Mhm.
direction from the the words that would tell you that beyond just this frothing anger in their face, and you don't
And
see that
that's
as often as you would like to in a visual
no,
medium.
you really don't. And that's why like I've come to now he's still one of my all-time favorites, but because Matthew brought it up, I think last time he was on The Long Halloween. At that point, the latest, the final Halloween or whatever it is that just came out. I went back and started reading a lot of Tim Sale's stuff, and you can never accuse Tim Sale of not, not Tim. Yeah, you can never accuse Tim Sale of not showing emotion in his acting. They just,
Agreed.
I mean, of course, it's cartoony and it's characteresque and whatever, but it's exactly what every character is feeling all the time. And I'm in the middle of a Dark Victory reread. My God, I forgot how good these books
It's so
were.
good.
Oh, Long Halloween, the first series is so damn good with the Falcons and like just oh my God. So my segue from that was I absolutely adore the Penguin series on Max. It's just like oh my God. It takes a lot of inspiration from the Long Halloween. And it's Batman. The Batman took inspiration from the Long Halloween in a
Yeah.
way.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mhm.
just
Very much so.
But Matthew, have you read and Alex, have you read the latest Long Halloween?
No, I'm trade waiting that one because
I read the first issue. Did they come out with a second issue yet?
So they had issue 0 and then they had issue 1. Did you read them
Yeah,
both?
that's where I am. I'm caught up on both of those. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
so
I
is
read
that the
those.
first or the second issue at this point? Like I
I would
understand the
call it the
logic.
second.
I call it the
I would
second
call it
issue
the
too. I don't
second.
know why it's
Because
a 0.
if
Because it
I'm
was free.
Oh, and Tim Sale was alive at that point.
yeah,
But it was a free book on Batman Day. So that's why you call it 0.
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a marketing thing more than anything else.
Because it's Eduardo Rizzo does the artwork for the current rest of the series. Because obviously, rest in peace, Tim passed on, and I think he does a phenomenal job of stepping in. I really enjoyed issue 2, if we're going to call it that. The artwork, I thought it was great. What I don't like, and I don't know if you heard Matthew, because you're more in the know than me, that they're going to do a rotating artist every single issue for the whole arc.
Yes.
I kind of enjoy that.
Oof.
It can work, it cannot work. It all depends on if the
Yeah.
story supports the
Yeah.
will the form support the function in this
Yeah.
case. That is a
It-
question.
That brings me back to the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, the film that Heath Ledger died when he was filming.
Sure.
Oh, I've heard about that. Yeah.
And so you had he had filmed a quarter of his scenes, which just so happened to be all of the scenes in a certain location.
Mm-hmm.
And then because he would travel to a different world and he went to 3 different worlds, they used 3 different actors. So you had Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and
Right. Heath Ledger.
Heath. No, so there was someone else as well, Colin
Oh, okay.
Farrell maybe.
Yeah.
And because you had these guys fill in, it worked because the nature of the story, the way it was being told, made sense. He would look different in different places. So,
Mm.
I
Sure.
also heard that those three actors donated their fees to Heath Ledger's daughter too,
I
which
heard
I
that
thought
too.
was
Yeah.
That's really cool.
yeah.
That's really cool.
So it can work, and it can work
Yeah.
really well depending on how it's done. I think
Yes.
that given
The
it's a long
story has to
Halloween,
be strong enough. It has to be a killer
not
script for it to work.
not
I
not
think.
even that. Like I think given that it's a long Halloween, if it's an episodic, this happens in this month, this happens in the next
Right.
month, you could easily have a
Yeah.
stylistic difference. I mean, and if you had, I don't know, like so you have Greg Capullo in issue one, and then you go to someone that's similar in style to Greg Capullo, you could do the change over time.
Okay, so you're
I,
talking like a gradual change, like gradient.
yeah, like you could do a gradual change. I don't think you'd want to go from Greg Capullo to John Romita Jr. to,
Oh no, or Scotty
Peach
Young.
like
Momoko.
Peach Momoko, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly. That would be
I,
crazy.
it would be interesting.
It would
It,
be.
it, I don't think it would be to my taste, but I think that that's just because it would throw me off a lot. Whereas a gradual change that if you ended up from Tim Sale to Peach Momoko, I think could work really well
I think
if
that's
it
the
went bit by
question.
bit.
Like, are all the artists doing their best Tim Sale homages? Are they
Right.
going to get to be because I will say Rizzo did I would consider Rizzo did sort of an homage to Tim Sale in many
Absolutely. I
ways.
think so. I think it was a little
So
bit different than his normal art.
right. And so that's going to be my question is
Yeah.
are you simply homaging Tim for the entire run with all these artists, which is interesting in a different way. It's
Mhm.
interesting in a sort of meta form
Yeah.
because it's
Right.
also going to be interesting to see all these artists do things to your point, Joe, a little different than what we normally
Yeah.
see, which can be fun for a
Oh,
fan.
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
will it hold together to tell a story? We're gonna
Right.
read it and find out. Like
Yeah.
one of my favorite commissions that I ever got from an artist was Jay Lee, and
Jay Lee's great.
Jay Lee was great. And Jay Lee though, I asked him to do a big Barda, and he said, "Do you
Ooh.
want me to do like bikini Barda, like Jack Kirby Barda?" And I was like, "Sure." And so my Jay Lee sketch is literally him doing a riff on Kirby with the face, like the
Oh,
jawline
really?
is a very
Okay.
Kirby jaw. It's unlike any Jay Lee art I've seen.
I can't
Um,
picture Jay Lee drawing Big Barter.
I will take a photo and send it to the
You
group
have
chat.
to.
No
I
problem.
want to see this.
And you'll read it and you're like, oh yeah, that is Jay Lee's interpretation of Jack Kirby. So
That's a
and
good
it's
point.
very neat, but it's not what I'm expecting as a Jay Lee fan either. So are
No.
you
No.
and that's the double-edged sword with this sort of thing. Again, managing expectations here.
Yeah.
We were expecting Tim Sale. We have a very
Mhm.
high expectation
Yeah. Very.
of what this series should look like.
Right.
So how are they going to manage our expectations going forward? And that's
Not
why
with
we
John Romita Jr., I hope.
no, but that's why
Oh,
we read the
man.
book. That's why
Mhm.
we read the book. So
Like I
Absolutely.
fully intend to read the book, and I've said before, this is one I try and avoid trade waiting, but I am trade waiting this one purely because every other long Halloween stuff I have is in
Yeah.
trade form, and it's just easier for me to keep it that way and read.
I
Um,
read from Halloween Haunted Night, which prequels the Long Halloween all the way through Dark Victory right now because like I couldn't put it down. I just got hooked. I was like, oh, I forgot how good this was. Like, and the thing is, these big maxi series, arcs where it was like 13 issues, these big series, like I'll use Hush as an example.
sure.
Hush is a great, wonderful picture book. It's beautiful. But if you want me to tell you that it's better than The Long Halloween, you're out of your tree. The
I
story is
the
not
thing
even
is,
close to the same level.
I
Not
could
even.
tell you that it's better than a long Halloween. It doesn't mean I
You'd
believe
be
it.
lying. You'd be lying.
Yeah,
It's
And
called
that's the thing.
selling.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the thing is, no, that's the stuff that The Rock does when Stone Cold Steve Austin gives him a stunner. No,
Which
no,
is
no,
a
no, that
fantastic
was
way of doing it.
crickets.
One of my big questions to both of you gentlemen,
Yeah,
and Alex, this speaks to you a little bit as a retailer, and Joe, this speaks to you more as a fan.
sure.
So if you notice what they have done from a branding perspective, is you used to have Haunted Night, Long Halloween, Dark Victory in
Yes.
reprints in the last couple of years, and now with the final Halloween,
Yep.
it is the Long Halloween subtitle, Haunted Night,
Yes.
Dark Victory, Final Halloween. Now that is a
Yeah.
very, very long title. It's
Right.
very challenging from a metadata standpoint, quite frankly,
Hmm.
to have in your POS system, to have on your ordering platforms, because you only have so many characters to
Right.
work with. Um, but I am curious. It feels very bookmark it. To your point, there's Song of Fire and Ice, Game of Thrones, sort of like all that stuff.
I like it because, yeah,
Yeah.
I
Tell
like
me
it
what
because
your
it's like
thoughts on it.
Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, Star Wars: The Last
Sure.
Jedi. It's the same effect. It's
Hmm.
in this universe, so it's unmistakably you're not going to accidentally read something outside that universe if you stick to this because it's bookended in the Long Halloween overarching title. Is it a nightmare probably for PR and like you just said with characters and things? Sure.
It's a
But I think
very
for
long
fans,
title.
yeah. Well, it's no longer than the woman in the house across the street from the girl in the window on Netflix, and that was a great show. But
Wasn't
like
it a satire though?
it was a
Right.
satire of
Okay.
something like the woman in the house across the house. It was like a riff off of that.
Yeah.
But I'm a Kristen Bell guy, so I watched it, and it was horror based, so I dug it until the end, which was absolutely terrible. But anyways, I like it because it lets you know right up front. Oh, I'm getting Long Halloween. Like this all goes together. So if I want this whole story, and they should also throw Catwoman when in Rome in there because that's
Oh, I think they do actually. Now that you mention it, I
okay.
think that's
So it
also
has to be because that's one that, in order to understand Selena's perspective from Carmine the Roman Falcone, you have to read it because you know that she's his daughter. Like and it all makes sense for everybody. Like you have to read it. So, and if you haven't, I just spoiled it. But it goes together in that universe, like Haunted Night. Because if you read something like Haunted Night, you might think you're reading the Long Halloween proper,
so
and it's
the full
not.
title right now it is for Catwoman is Batman the Long Halloween Catwoman When in Rome Deluxe Edition, because it's the hardcover I'm looking at right now. That
No,
is an
that's terrible. It should,
extremely
yeah,
long title.
it should just be the Long Halloween when in Rome.
Well, but then you don't know to put it under B for Batman. And Batman's the
So
keyword.
here's my thoughts on it.
Interesting. Very interesting.
It's fucking stupid. I hate it.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. If I'm trying to reorder the Long Halloween or the Long Halloween for someone,
Here we go.
hey,
This is what I wanted
so
to hear.
All right. Here's
I'm
the
gonna.
real
All
answer.
right, so you want a copy of the Long Halloween? Yep, sure. Okay, so I order the Long Halloween and then realize that I get Batman, the Long Halloween, Catwoman, When in Rome, because the title is too long to fit on the screen. So I've ordered
Correct.
a book that someone doesn't want, and now I can't sell because
Yep.
we.
Okay.
It's not that people won't buy that, but people are going to buy the Long Halloween long before they're going to buy When in Rome.
No, it's 100%
You
true.
don't need to have 5 copies of the Long Halloween, 5 copies of Dark Victory, 5 copies, etc. Because most
Yeah.
people, I'll get the Long Halloween. Oh, that was cool. I'll get Dark Victory, and then they don't always get the rest of it. So having a title that's basically a book in and of itself is ridiculous. I hate it. It's
Okay.
annoying as someone putting something back on the shelf because like, oh hey, is this a Catwoman book? Is this a Batman book?
Yeah.
Where does it go? Do I alphabetize it? Like, at what point did we start holding people's hands to say, hey, this is a Batman, the Long Halloween thing? It's in the artwork. You can have it on the cover saying the sequel to Batman, the Long Halloween, is Dark Victory.
Correct.
You don't have to have it in a title that's a disaster for someone to order. Even if you look it up on Amazon, it's not easy to find now that it is the way it is. It's a disaster. It's a nightmare, and I fucking think it's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It's a disaster. It's a nightmare, and I fucking think it's stupid.
So, Alex, my workshopping this a little bit with you, and I love that feedback. Thank you. Because again, you as a retailer have a very, whereas like Joe's like, it's perfect because it tells me it's all part of one story,
It,
right? But you are
so
looking at it on a
on a
screen
yep,
where
it's
you can't get the volume number basically to
no,
pop up, so you have no idea what you're ordering in there.
no, exactly. So I'm destroying half a display just to get 3 books out because I. So, folks, we're on camera right now. It's not going to be a video podcast, but you have the printing I have of the Long Halloween is literally just the Long Halloween on the front, Batman Dark Victory, and Haunted Night. The back of them clearly show that it's part of a trilogy because you've got the picture of the other books on the back. That's all I need. Like if it's, oh hey, there's 2 other books. I wonder if this is the sequel, the first or the second. Like I wonder
Right.
if this is the right. It gives me enough to start looking. We're adults. Most of us reading this aren't
I
kids,
get
and
it.
if it's a kid reading it, then they're just going to enjoy the artwork anyway. They're going to
In the
enjoy what they're
words of
going to
Vince
get.
McMahon, fuck them kids.
Well, oh God, whoa. I think so. So here's my question to you, Alex.
I didn't think
Would
of it this way
you
at all. Oh, Brady, I'm
would
sorry.
you would you like it if, say, it was Catwoman When in Rome subtitle a long
Yes,
Halloween, a
yes.
Batman Long Halloween, the Long Halloween story
That
kind of thing?
that would be if that would be the best compromise to have
And
Okay.
everything in one place.
and
Is
listen,
having it as
and to your point, on the trade dress itself, you could still say Batman, the Long Halloween, Catwoman When in Rome, whatever.
Yeah.
But from a metadata standpoint,
yeah.
if Batman, the Long Halloween was the subtitle, not the title, then it would be easier
Even the
to
trade dress,
reorder.
if you're going to have it, the main focal point should be the actual name of the story.
The Long
Agreed.
So
Halloween.
if the Long
Oh no, you're right.
Halloween,
You're right.
Dark
Right. Yeah.
Victory, right? So if you've
When in
got
Rome, yeah.
Batman, yeah, when in Rome, it should be. So if you're looking at the
Just like
side of
George
it,
R. R. Martin's books.
Yeah.
Like you
yeah,
you always notice it says A Song of Fire and Ice story, but it's smaller as a
hmm
subtitle on all those
Yeah.
exactly,
volumes.
exactly. Like if I look at so this is a bad example. So the side of these books by John Gwynne, it's Shadow of the Gods, but up at the very top, in the very top up there, it says the Bloodsworn trilogy.
Right.
That's all
Yeah.
I need. Oh hey, this is book 2. Great. I won't buy book 2 before I buy book 1. But if it said in big letters Bloodsworn, I'm like, well, I've got that. It's just a different cover.
No,
other
good point.
The other thing too that publishers can do is to make sure that all the books have the same series code, so that when you are looking at it on the back end in the metadata, when you look up Catwoman When in Rome, you would also get in the results on the item
Yeah.
page is like other books in this series to order: Dark Victory, Long Halloween, Haunted Night, and everything else. That is an easy metadata thing to
And
do. I'm not sure if DC does that. I'd have to look.
I
But
don't know. And I think what
they
people
could, by the way.
typically wouldn't think about is like when we're ordering it and I'm doing it quickly for someone when they're at the counter and I'm trying to go through Diamond, Universal, the 3 or 4 different spots you can go to order stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to do it as quickly as you can, because if it takes me 5 minutes to look something up and make sure I have the right one, that person's probably going to get bored and wander away.
Yes.
Right? Like I only have so long to actually look it up, whilst also trying to do so on a computer that then this is not going to be the same for everyone. Maybe the computer isn't quite as fast. Maybe the POS isn't fully updated. It's tough to get it. It's one more headache that I shouldn't have to worry about when I'm trying to make a sale and trying to sell something for a publisher.
I never knew about any of this stuff. This is fascinating.
This is why I love it, Joe. Because but again, you're giving us the consumer perspective, right? Which is
I'm giving
very
you like
important.
the Homer Simpson consumer,
which is just as valid. It's just as valid, because at the end of the day, we want to sell it to you, Joe. So what Alex is saying, this is what I need in order to be more efficient in ordering the book and selling the book to you. And what you're talking about is what you need the book to actually look like from a trade dress perspective, and also how it would be shelved, because if it's called
Right.
Batman: The Long Halloween,
Right.
Catwoman When in Rome, you don't
Yeah.
necessarily put that book under C for Catwoman. You will put it
Right.
under B for Batman, and now
Batman,
you
yeah.
have all the books are right there together on the shelf in the same place, rather than Batman L, Batman H, Batman D, where
Yeah.
they're in 3 separate shelves potentially, and so people would
See,
miss those parts. But if you
this
put
is where people need to take a cue from Stallone. Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4,
so
Rocky 5.
here's my
Roman
counter
numerals.
argument, Joe. When you put a volume number on something, only volume 1 sells.
Yeah,
Volumes
we've
2,
had this argument multiple times.
and
yeah.
it's true.
No,
Volume
you're right.
2,
You're 100% true.
volume 2 sales drop like a rock. 3, 4, even worse.
I don't
Um,
understand that phenomenon. To me, it's
I
like
I can tell you
crazy.
exactly why. I have volume 1 of the Department of Truth at home. I haven't read it yet, but I have volume 1. I haven't bothered to buy
Yeah.
volume 2 because I haven't read volume 1.
Hmm.
Will I ever buy volume 2? Maybe. Maybe volume 1's pretty good. Yeah, I'm not going to buy the next one though. Like it's
Why would you
people.
do that? If it's that's pretty good, and I don't need to know where this goes.
Also, sometimes people run out of steam. You
Yeah.
you read the first like couple, 2, 3, 4 books, and then it's like, oh god, I have 17 more books in
I
this
like
will-
series.
Berserk?
It's a lot.
You mean like
It's
Berserk?
manga is dealing with it
Oh no, I
horribly
was
right
talking
now.
Keanu Reeves Berserk.
Oh, you're talking about Berserker. Okay.
Berserker.
Yeah,
Cool.
like
But it's a really big
I've
manga
read
problem.
the first. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
And The Walking Dead was a disaster for it. You
Sure.
cannot if someone comes in with hey, we've got like all 20, 30 volumes of The Walking Dead. What are we giving me for them? Like, well, nothing really, because we've got so many of them. The
Yeah.
only ones we really need are the last few, maybe, but
Yep.
they take a while to sell because it's not often you get people buying all of them in one go.
No. There's no
I
way.
think for a long time we just weren't bothering to buy back the Walking Dead trades. They sit for too long.
Well, and they take up space.
Mhm.
Long running series, when you have 20 books into it, it's okay. Those are probably, I'm going to sell volumes 1, 2, 3, and 19 and 20. So that's 14, 15 books taking up space on my shelf
Right.
that I could be giving to something else that will sell. Right.
And something else that we're passionate about selling.
Yes.
Right.
I never realized any of this.
And
I
God
would
help
rather
you if
give
volume
space.
1 and 2 go out of print,
Mhm.
and then all you have is volumes 3 through 17 on your shelf, and you have no way to sell them at that point.
Yeah. I don't remember the last time I've ordered Walking Dead.
Sure.
Right. Like I don't remember the last time I had to put an order through that someone was looking for it.
Is it back again?
No.
Oh, okay. So it's still at 193. He ended it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But I would rather give the shelf space from the 20 some volumes of Walking Dead to books like Crashing, to books like Lake of Fire.
Mhm.
Right? Like there are so many other books I would rather give it to that I can sell, that I can talk about, that I'm passionate about and know people will enjoy. I don't remember the last time I recommended Walking Dead to anyone. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where the TV show was great in terms of getting people talking about it.
It was so good.
But once that show ended, the desire for people to then also read the comics kind of ended as well.
Yeah.
But it's still going. It's just it's outlived.
It's no longer bringing in any new fans.
Yeah.
Is the thing. You've tapped out the fan base for that.
Yeah, you absolutely have tapped
Whereas Invincible, different ballgame. Invincible is
I
still
have to
bringing
see
in
the
brand new
cartoon.
people. The cartoon's fabulous.
We
Everyone
are
tells me,
selling
gotta watch it.
the Invincible
The
omnibuses really well. Like they're doing fantastic. The individual trades, okay, but they're also harder to get a hold of, so it's easier to focus more on the omnibuy than anything
but that
else.
series ended too, right?
Yes.
So
yeah.
Invincible ended, yeah. Okay.
It ended with a caveat of like, I could do more kind of deal with that. But it's very, very apropos. But yeah, I mean, like but also that's why Walking Dead started selling better in compendium than in single volumes, because people didn't want to buy 20 books, but they would buy 5 books and for a better price point. So it's just how you have to deal with a long running series are tough, but also every volume is really just a way to get more people to buy volume 1 again. Like that's what ends up happening. Every time there's a new volume that comes out, volume 6 is actually meant to boost volume 1 sales. So that's why you generally have new stock arrive of volume 1 with the new volumes that come out as well.
That's pretty smart.
It's all just advertising. Like Lumberjanes. Lumberjanes ran for like 12 books, 12 graphic novel collections.
I've heard about that, yeah.
Every one that came out, you'd see a spike in volume 1. And volume 1 would continue to outsell even when a new volume would come out. Volume 1 would outsell that new volume by the time of the end of it. Like that's how it was.
I think the big problem is with my mindset is I forget when I walk into a comic book store that I'm not the only person in the universe, that the stuff that I have already read doesn't pertain to anybody else because I've read it. Who cares what you've read? It's what are you gonna read for me lately? Like what am I gonna read now? And it's that personal mindset, and I think that I forget that because I would think if it was me, I'd be out of business. I'd be like, oh, people don't want to read number 1. It's been out there for 3 years. They just want the new stuff. So I'd be totally torpedoed because I wouldn't get this at all.
One of my
that's brilliant.
One of the greatest potentials, in my opinion, this is Matthew's personal opinion, as somebody who talks to retailers, who has visited a ton of comic shops in the last couple months, especially. I've probably visited about 15, 20 shops in the last 2 months, all over the country. So one of the biggest places for growth for the comic book shop is backlist. And when I say backlist, it's material that's more than 2 years old. And we have so much new stuff that comes out that people don't keep up on reordering those quote unquote evergreens, perennials, volume 1s. Because we are trying to make space for the new things, and we buy everything new as an industry. Stores just instinctively buy every new book that comes out, as opposed to also putting as much effort into finding new sales for evergreen titles, because we're not thinking about new customers coming in. We're thinking about the relationships with established customers who've already read all that stuff and want to read something new. And there's a very delicate balance that's not being met in the marketplace, in my opinion.
I just had a light bulb.
I would actually agree with what Matthew said. Now, ironically enough, because there's the shop I work at, specifically the shop I work at, most of the people that work there don't read superhero comics. So
shame on them.
No. See, it actually works out to the benefit because you have independent comics selling. Like we push Crashing because I told the owner's wife to read it. Like she's like, this is really good. We'll read By the Horns. Different kind of independent stuff that we can push, because I'm gonna sneeze and my point.
Alex, what was the other book that we were reading? I'm like, I only got to issue 17. It was King Arthur-esque. It was like
Once in Future.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So Once in Future is also another great example that all of us in the shop loved it. Now, I mean, that also, it's a Kieran Gillen book. It does sell really well, but it's really easy to sell.
Yeah.
And there's not a huge number of trades. I think there's like 5 or 6 maybe of trades. So we find when people come in new to the shop who aren't really into superheroes and don't want to start, like, if I wanted to start reading Batman, where should I start?
1939 kid.
Exactly. But that's exactly the point that we have. And we're like, oh, that's a great question. Where's the newest reboot?
Right.
But is the newest reboot really the best place to start, or would you rather just do trades to catch up? Like, would you rather read War Games? Would you rather read The Long Halloween?
And you make more money on trades per sale than you do on a single issue. Which is,
I mean, it depends on how old a single issue is too, because
sure. Yeah.
Right, but that's a different
not talking about back
entirely.
issues. Yeah, more comparing to new release stuff.
Yeah, so it really depends on how or when those comics came in. But if it's a customer coming in who may not be the biggest comic fan, that's our favorite person to talk to because or what are you into? And then they
That's
give us an
interesting.
idea as to what they want. Like, oh, do you play
Mhm.
D&D? Yeah, I kind of do. Okay, well, this book you'll enjoy. This book you'll enjoy. You might enjoy that one. And then they come back and it's like, all right, so I like that, I like that, I like that. I'm going to trade this thing because it wasn't really my thing. And we're like, great. And then you build a rapport with them and they keep coming back. And
That's cool.
be, because we don't always direct them to superhero books unless we think
Right.
they're going to like them, it has more of a turnover of the independent book. So I find, and I hate the fact that I know this, but the reason I think you get so many miniseries is that miniseries can do a lot better long form in trade, where there's maybe one or two trades that are part of the series that
Yeah.
you can sell. Like, it's not as big of a commitment.
Right.
I mean, at this point, I'm happy buying issue 307 of Wolverine
See,
because
that's the way
that's what
I
I like.
feel. I
But
love that. I want issue 10,000.
yeah, exactly, and so do I. But if I'm trying to attract a new person to comics, then
Yeah.
you've got to get them used to reading, enjoy the art form, and then,
Mhm.
well, should I read Wolverine? You know what? Just go pick up issue 57. It's a good enough starting on point,
Right.
and then you can go from there. And if you like it, go back maybe,
Yeah.
or you can go forward. It's entirely up to you. But you've almost got to get people in the door first, and
Right.
then you can get them
Correct.
into some of the bigger
And
stuff.
So
the way you get them in the door is backlist. You
Yeah,
sell them.
so I
You
just
sell
have
them that perennial. You sell them that evergreen. You sell them. You want to sell them the best example of of the character's
yeah,
story or the genre that they're looking for, and then you can bring them over to newer stuff or get them in. Like I did that a million times working in a shop. And
yeah.
Alex, so to your point, I agree with you, and I don't think publishers have figured it out yet in terms of the miniseries. And what I mean by that is if I'm a publisher doing a 4-issue miniseries, I am not going to think I'm going to make my money back on those 4 single issues. My goal is actually to make my money back on the trade.
Mm.
And with that longer tail that it can be sold in and do the proper promotion for the trade paperback. The reason they don't do longer series is because sales drop precipitously. Attrition is a very real thing, and
Mhm.
you lose money issue by issue the
Yep.
longer a series goes, without question.
And you can see it in in just in the ordering. Like, hey, we're
Sure,
going to order 30 copies of issue 1. Then we'll probably do 15 of issue 2.
correct.
And
That's
a lot,
interesting.
Then you'll do 10 to 7 of issue 3.
yep. And this is even before you've sold issue 1 because you got to do the
Correct.
3 issues at a time. So
And
Right.
if
you
and
know that there are people that I've done it too. Oh, hey, issue number 1, I'll check that out. Yeah, it wasn't great, so you don't bother buying issue 2.
right, or you
Right.
say, "Oh, that was cool. Oh, it's only gonna be 4 issues. I'll just wait for the trade."
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
Because you can't build up a
issue
fan base from
yeah,
4 issues or 5 issues.
issue 1 is usually an advertisement for the trade for me.
Correct. The problem is publishers don't treat it that way.
Exactly.
Not
And
yet.
that's the issue is that if they say, "Hey, we've got this many issues," great, wonderful. There are definitely some creators that I will deliberately and intentionally buy the comics, even if I'm not going to read them and wait for the trade 'cause it's easy to
Same.
read. I will 100% do that. I It was a wonderful problem to have. I don't have every issue of Crashing, Matthew, because I couldn't find it because we kept selling out. So
Wow,
Which is
that's
great.
lovely
I
to hear.
yeah, so I
That's
think
great.
issues 1, 4, and 5 or some like there's a couple I'm missing, but I'm
Well, you let me know. I'll put together a little package for you. I've
it
still got some
no it
comps.
I, this isn't me asking for it because I have the trade, so like I read it in trade anyway.
Sure.
But I was buying it specifically because I was trying to support you and make sure that it would go through. And
I
the
Mhm.
fact that
appreciate
they
it.
were sold out, I'm like, I'm not going to be upset if I can't get a copy because they're sold out. Like this is not a bad problem to have.
It's a good problem.
And
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And like buy the horns, like anything Marcus Naso puts out, I will buy single issue copies, even if I have
So
every intention of buying the trades, because
I'm
I'm
a
trying to make
single issue
sure that
copy guy
Sure.
more than anything. That's my favorite thing. Like
mm,
I'm very 90s in that way. I like issue to issue. It's like my version of reading the newspaper. I just like
Mhm.
to have the new issue in my hand. And then when I want to read it in trade, I compile all my issues, sit in a floor, and I just start reading stacks. Like that's the way I do
it,
it. I'm very old school. When I
I
buy a
love
trade,
doing it that
I
way.
never crack the trade. Never crack the trade.
Interesting. I am
Yep.
more likely to read the trade because there's usually additional stuff in there that you can enjoy.
I
For example, Voracious, they give you recipes in there for the food that they're making in the
yeah,
comic, right?
I
Like you have
love
that behind the
rereading.
scenes stuff, and
I
I
love
do
pulling
too.
like one issue after another, after another, after
I
another.
just
I'm just weird that way. I really
I
dig it.
just don't like
You're not
going down
weird.
to the yeah. I just
It's
don't like
great.
going down to the basement to pull out a box. Here it is.
Mm,
I'll take the comics upstairs, read them, then take them back downstairs. I'm
Yeah, no, I
lazy.
get it. I know, I get it. You don't seem lazy, dude. You run a lot of 5Ks, so like you're
Yeah, but
good.
there's a difference between lazy and trying to make sure my heart keeps working.
There you go.
Oh, okay, well, true enough. But you said something that light bulbed me, and I realized that we have gone like way over time. But this is how great it is to have Matthew back on because we're excited. You said something about evergreen, so that obviously translates to collectibles too. So I was just like, I light bulbed in my head when you were talking. Is this why I always get a new set of NECA 4 turtles when they start releasing like a new wave of like tertiary characters and supporting characters? They always throw out some new version of the turtles or like a reissue of the old turtles because it's harder to get people to buy these side characters without the main characters.
So I know very little about the the figures and toys industry.
Okay,
I will make an assumption
that
about
it's
that,
that.
but
Yeah.
I want it to be said it's very clearly an assumption. But in general, yes, the books featuring the main characters always sell better than that. And when you think of TMNT, you don't think of Casey Jones first. You think of the Turtles
Four
first. So
brothers, yeah.
and that is part of the collectibles nature is that you are trying to get the same customer to buy
Yeah.
the same characters over and over and over again, and you have to make it different each
Yeah,
time.
you're universe building. Yeah.
You're universe building, and you're working towards a repeat buyer. That is your customer.
Mhm.
A collector is a repeat buyer. um, when we're talking about evergreens, we're looking at in the book market, you're looking at hooking in brand new readers or casual folks who've
Mhm.
never experienced it before, right? Absolute Batman on some level is looking at those people who are like, "Oh, I'm familiar with Batman and I want something brand new to Batman." Because to your point, Joe, if this was someone's first Batman book, it
Yeah.
is so different
Oh,
than
wildly.
everything that's come before it. You wouldn't necessarily understand what changes are being made. It would be a different sort of impact you're getting. Whereas if you come to it with prior knowledge of the character, you have more appreciation for it. That's
You,
what a reimagining does.
you know what I
Um,
love
yeah,
though is he reimagined it so vastly,
correct.
but
Yeah,
yet he still feels like Bruce Wayne on some level.
well,
Which is how you know
he's a
it's
broody bitch. So
yeah.
yeah,
It's how you know
No,
it's
no,
done well.
no. He's still. It's just he's not as okay. So he's not Grant Morrison, Bat God. He's not Frank Miller's over the top, like militaristic Batman. And he's not every Batman you've ever seen who just is grumpy as shit all the time. He's a Batman who has a mission, who is more grassroots, but he still has a soul. Like this Bruce Wayne has a soul. And there's a point in it that I won't ruin that keeps him having his soul. But like the reimagining of his tragedy is done in such a brilliant, relatable way. I'm like, oh man, this is so commonplace, but it's so identifiable. Like I just really, Alex, you got to read it because we're gonna geek out the
Yeah, I've
hell
got
out of it.
no. That's fine. That's fine. I've got to go pick it up today, and I've got to
And
go
can you
downtown.
please get me a copy? But I don't know if you have the. I'm gonna hunt it down after this show. I
Yeah,
want the Akira. I want the Akira cover.
okay. I
Walking to
don't
the
know what
bike.
we have at the shop at this point. I haven't been down a week, so I have no idea
Yeah,
what is and isn't
Matthew,
there.
have you seen that
Um,
cover where he's walking
yeah.
to the bike?
Hmm.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's like the best Akira homage. It's Batman and Akira. Like, yeah, take all my
So
money.
So, dear listeners, if you take anything away from this conversation, it's that you should read Absolute Batman #1 to join in on this and get your thoughts out to everybody.
Please do.
Yep. I actually think that's a great way to end it, because we're at an hour and 45 minutes. I'm probably not cutting any of it. So
Great.
There we go.
Good.
Do part 1, part 2.
I could, and logically,
It
I
just
could
speaks
do
that
that.
we've missed Matthew so much,
Yeah.
and we need to get him back on again.
And honestly, if this is a part 2, it's purely because at an hour and 40 minutes, I don't know how many people are going to keep listening to us beyond this far. So we'll figure out if there's a good way to end it around the hour mark. Maybe I will. We'll see. Matthew, I'm not going to ask if you have any final thoughts, but I know people can find you at Matthew Klein 316 on the format previously known as Twitter. And Instagram is MacTheKnife1116.
Yep. 11/16 is my birthday, so that's the cheat code there.
Still the best handle, Mac the Knife. I freaking love that so much.
You know where you can find Joe and I. It's in the show notes. I'm not going to go over that.
Can I give one more quick plug though?
Absolutely.
If you are in the area, if you are willing to take the journey to Forbidden Planet in New York City, in Manhattan, great store where I still locally shop, where I used to work, one of the best comic shops in the country. They just took on copies of my webcomic that I got published physically, that I'm self-publishing, called No Rhyme or Reason. So we put the show notes in there to find it on Tapas for free. But if you want to see a really cool physical edition, they are only available right now at Forbidden Planet.
What is the address for Forbidden Planet in New York?
I think it's 832 Broadway, if I remember correctly.
The reason I say that is every time I've been, I can never find it, and it's usually because I'm in the wrong general area of New York. Because when I was searching up New York comic shops, Midtown Comics comes up,
of course,
and there's one in Brooklyn that shows up, but Forbidden Planet rarely ever did, and I'm not sure why.
It's a great question. It's 832 Broadway. It is just off the corner of 12th Street and Broadway. If you see the Strand bookstore, it's 2 windows over, basically on the same block.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. I will one day go back there. And
I need to go there personally. It's on my list.
Yeah. So on that note, I'm going to keep talking now until the music starts playing. And it's either going to drown me out or it's not. So there we go.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.